I would open this scene the way most are opened. But first, I would like you to consider one thing. On a day-to-day basis, most people will skip breakfast or even lunches. But what happens when the thing that sustains you, the thing that keeps you going, the thing that keeps you level and sane, well, is skipped far too frequently for weeks on end? In a familiar, small South Docks region apartment in New Sarum, a young man wakes up with a hunger in the pit of his stomach that is like no other. Edwin rouses this evening feeling just this way. He doesn't put his feet down on the floor and sit up. No. He rolls onto the ground, feeling a slight snarl purse his lips and reverberate through his sinuses. A slight clawing at carpet and furniture. He gets up moments later, walks around a piece of furniture or walks towards the door. A sudden noise causes him to crouch low, knees bent, both hands between his legs, kind of as if a dog is guarding or posturing for something. He tilts his head towards the door, cocking it in a very animalistic, very bestial fashion to listen. His eyes glowing red as usual, menacing. He begins to sniff at the air. A slight aroma from the single room in the apartment wafts under the door, muddled with the smell of musty carpet or walls that maybe haven't been thoroughly wiped down in a week or two. Confused, he looks around the apartment. This goes on for some 20, 30, 40 minutes. During that time, Edwin gets back up to his feet. He tries to shake his head, trying to shake this off. Like water from a fur-covered body after a bath or a rain. He feels a compulsion to drink, much like he's read about compulsion in drug addicts to seek the object of their desire. An alcoholic walking into a bar, jittering slightly, he walks into the bathroom, shaking, twitching, sniffing, snarling, tilting his head. His ears wiggle slightly. He walks in toward the bathroom, looks in the mirror. What he sees, he doesn't recognize. He shakes it off slightly, taps the mirror with his palm. The other hand, he turns the water on. He, with shaking hands and a growling stomach, fills a basin of his hands with water as best he can, trying to keep as much in, and tries to wash his face off. When he lifts his head, the reflection staring back at him is like a blood-crazed wolf. Skittish, afraid, uncertain. Without pulling a towel down of the floor, without repositioning the bathroom mats, he pulls the shower curtain back and turns the water on. Doesn't wait for it to get warm. He strips his clothes off and hurriedly gets into the shower, trying to shock himself. As cold as he is, the water is a little colder. The still natural warmth begins to enhance itself ever so slightly, a sign of the humanity that he still holds on to. The only sign, one of the few. And that is where the scene will open. As Edwin huddles down, rocking back and forth, the occasional snarl, growl, and worried vocalization coming from within the bathroom from behind a locked door.
As this has progressed, a very large woman gets up for the night, stretching, which doesn't see much of a point. She gets up, getting dressed, taking her trusty balisong, stowing it away in her pocket. She leaves the bedroom, turning her head towards the bathroom door. And then she turns her head to the side, curious. It's usually gone by now. She moves into the living room. Wait a second. It's difficulty 7, isn't it? Shit. Okay. Sin.
What were you rolling for?
That's her nightmares roll. Sin,
Did you
first
get a 7?
No. At first, Sin doesn't notice much coming out of the bedroom. And then, what does she hear? 2, 3, 4 successes. She doesn't hear shit. She looks around as the haze moves from her eyes. Mouse moves somewhere in the corner. She jumps, leaping back from it. What the? It's... She puts her head in her hands, shaking it. It's just a sound. It's not him. It's not him. I'm good. I'm good. She pulls more at her hair, moving her fingers through it frantically, looking around, pained expression on her face. She looks ahead, shrinking down to almost the height of a normal person. She looks and is frozen in fear by what she sees. She begins stepping backwards. No, no, no. Stay away. No. She seems to be retreating from something. And inside the bathroom, does Edwin hear a loud thump on the door? Something just kind of thumps against the door as though someone ran into it. Not very quickly, but someone very large ran into the door.
Meanwhile, Edwin has gotten back onto his feet. His head hanging a little bit, hand against the wall of the shower as he lets the water run over himself. He brushes a bar of soap against his skin when he hears a very loud, very abrupt on the door. He drops the bar of soap, it falling into the tub around the drain as he slips off of his feet and turns his head towards the door. The shower curtain being pulled down off of the railing in the process, ripping, tearing, bending metal. He looks towards the door. Fear, uncertainty grips him. He struggles to get back onto his feet, pushing part of the shower curtain rod back up into position, only to see it bent. He puts it to one side, scrambles to the faucet handles to turn the water off. In the next motion, grabbing a towel hanging on the wall, begins to dry himself off in a hurried fashion. As he does so, gets dressed with that same fervor, that same alacrity. When he has all but socks and shoes on, he goes to the door and opens it to see what's before him.
Sin stands backed against the door.
Ooh.
She jumps with a start as it opens up. Who's there? And she uncharacteristically falls flat on her ass and just starts kind of scooting away from Edwin. She's got this look in her eyes, this look of fear, a great, terrible fear.
Edwin
She shakes as she scoots back.
Edwin kind of lowers his body a little bit in a squat, cocking his head ever so slightly. And it cranes a little bit more. The sound of sniffing can be heard. I'm going to make a perception alertness roll. The smell of blood emanating from the person in front of him racks his mind with more apprehension on one side and a desire on the other. As his form moves his head, it begins to crane to the other side. And snaps, barking, snarling, before Edwin gets back up to his feet. Taking the long way around around to the other side of the couch where his shoes are. He quickly slips them onto his feet, grabbing his keys and phone.
Just leave me alone.
Is there a mirror in the living room?
No.
Okay. As Edwin begins to look, or walk towards the door, he looks back, head craning. His eyes catch sight of himself in the mirror in the bathroom. A quizzical look crosses his face, as though concentrating extremely hard. Walks back over to where his glasses are sitting. He looks at them. Placing them on his face. He sees, or he notices first the light is dulled. He looks around. Blinks his eyes rapidly to try to shake it off. Removes it halfway and then puts it back. After a couple of moments, he doesn't even notice the tint of the lenses as his vision clarifies a little bit more. Shoes haphazardly slipped on his feet, phone and keys in his pocket. He heads out the door. He doesn't walk tonight. No. He heads out the door. He doesn't even bother to let his hand to glide over the interior lock to lock the bottom. No. He opens it, runs out the door, letting his forward momentum before his hand lets go of the handle, close it, and the door comes to a close.
In the apartment, this loud noise startles the large woman, and she runs into the bathroom and sits curled up in the tub. No, no, stop. No.
As Edwin runs down the hallway towards the stairs to get outside of the apartment building, flight by flight, one hand on the railing, he skips 2, 3 steps at a time. Just to be fair, not gracefully. Halfway down each flight, he stumbles slightly, only barely getting back to his footing. He continues his jog until he finally gets to the bottom and out the doors. He looks both ways. After he gets out, his head cranes to one side. He tries to sniff the air against all logic. Somewhere deep down, he knows he can't smell. He can't smell like an animal, but he does it anyway. He tries to find that same smell of blood. The intensity of the growling in the pit of his stomach increases. That slight bestial growl in between that little voice nestled back there. Feed blood. Constantly. He jogs off to the left of the entrance to the apartment, racing down, his hood not up because he's not wearing his hooded sweatshirt. He begins to check every single alleyway that he comes across, trying to spot someone. He looks across streets. He looks at cars parked along the side for anyone walking out. The only thing in his mind right now is blood. I'm gonna make a perception alertness roll for hunting. Wow. And, okay. My absolutely wonderful helper, that is a great success. Who or what does he see or find? And how many blocks away? Actually, he's jogged now for about 2 blocks away from the apartment.
He comes across an alley a few blocks away. He hears the scream of a woman.
Hearing the scream, he heads toward it. Finally, the only thought on that other side of his mind is food, blood. as the voice interchanges with the growls and snarls on the other side of his mind. He races towards that scream, towards that alley.
And he finds that there is a man running out of the alley, almost running into him.
Let's see. Edwin is, well, he's barely coherent, extremely hungry, but still coherent. What is the man doing? Why is he running out of the
The
alleyway?
man is carrying a woman's purse, running out of the alleyway, going that way, down the street.
So, okay. Edwin went south, further south from Sin's apartment, so the mugger is running north.
Running north, yes.
Okay. As Edwin runs and races towards the alley, this man coming out of it, bumping one shoulder into his. Edwin is forcefully twirled in place, like something out of a cartoon almost, only not as hilarious, not as hysterical. He sees the woman at the end of the alley, the man with the purse running north frantically. His eyes quickly go back to the woman. Sees fear, swears he can smell fear. And just as his head turns, he begins running north, right behind the man who ran out of the alleyway with the purse. And, okay, so he is going to be about a turn ahead of me. I will make a dexterity and athletics roll. As Edwin runs as fast as he can with only one goal: blood, food, feed, blood. He forces himself. He tries to will his muscles to work more, or to work overtime, to propel his body forward a little faster and faster. He is actually going to spend 1 point of blood into dexterity as he feels his muscles, or as he feels his blood course through his veins, closer to empty, the growling in the pit of his stomach, the growling, snarling, blood becomes ever more present. His muscles begin to strengthen a little bit. His gait, his running gait, extends itself just a little bit. And he occasionally hops onto the hood of a car, running past it and then hopping off the back. Occasionally an alarm is sounded. Edwin just continues. Go ahead and make a dexterity athletics roll for the mugger.
He is a bit more dexterous than an average human. Not too physically fit. But he is booking it.
Okay. And let's see. With 4 dexterity this time. So 4-3. So I'm still about a turn behind him, I believe.
Yeah. The mugger is running, and Edwin is able to keep pace pretty easily, but that's not enough for him. He needs to catch this blood bag.
3-3. Okay, 3-3. So I'm keeping pace. Okay, I missed scene. I thought it was 4. As Edwin, he sees the man within his grasp, but still just he can't even get a finger on him. As he puts his hand forward, his hand goes down. He puts his head down and he tries to run, or he tries to put more effort, more strength, more force of will, mind over matter into the jog to try to catch him. As the mugger hears this snarling behind him, footfalls chasing him right at his back. What is his reaction?
This man kind of looks back. You crazy fool! You're running after me like that. Good God! Hey, put a lid on it. No one cares.
As though a rabid dog at his heels, or just a hungry dog. Let's go ahead and make another dexterity athletics. I think that's just a fail, but
Thankfully, it's just a fail.
yeah. As Edwin's focus veers from the act of running towards snarling at the man, growling, he trips over a bottle laying on the sidewalk and falls to the ground, trying now to scurry back to his feet. The man continues running.
He's making it pretty far.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
His legs aren't giving out on him yet.
Oh, stamina roll for him. Okay.
Giving a full sprint.
As Edwin begins to feel himself start to get tired, maybe even a little winded, he tries to get to his feet, tries to get back to his feet to run after this running source of food, this giant bag of blood, this steak on legs, putting every ounce of his mental strength, his will to feed into getting back to his feet and run, spending 1 willpower. He begins to take off. He doesn't start it slow. No. He just breaks into a run. All right. That'll be my next one. What's the man doing? Is he getting cocky? Or is he running still?
The guy's kind of... He kind of looks behind him as he's running. Hey! Quit following me, man! This ain't your business!
From about half to 3/4 of a block away, Edwin hears or sees the man turn around and say something, stop. Not your business. Um, Edwin continues to run and plow towards the man with a very determined look in his eyes behind his glasses, his vision not deterred by either the streetlight glare on the lenses nor the shading of the lenses at all. He continues to plow forward, continues to move at an extraordinary pace towards this walking piece of blood-filled meat.
The man continues running.
Jesus Christ!
He could have, if he wasn't a filthy criminal, he could have been a track star. He could have, but he wasn't. He's a filthy mugger, possibly a rapist. You never know.
Does he continue running north towards the commercial dock or the industrial docks, or does he veer?
He continues running.
Edwin getting even more furious, as if the man is taunting him by having turned around before he continues his run further and further north. Begins to feel a well of anger, a well of anger at himself, disappointment, extreme disappointment and anger at himself that he's not able to keep up that same anger that he would feel at somebody who's obviously lazy, getting something they don't deserve. I'm actually going to have to make a self-control roll. Difficulty will be 5, I believe. Though the reins of that snarl begin to dissipate a little bit, it still is boisterous and audible behind the bars and metal collar holding it to a post. Edwin continues to plow forward.
The man shows no signs of getting tired just yet.
Well, slight sign, maybe.
Or at least slowing down.
Mm-mm. He's probably about a block ahead of me at this point, isn't he?
It's about a block ahead. He's been running full sprint. He's slowing down a bit, but not too much. That would have been difficulty 8 because it's actually been going up each time after rolling this.
Edwin doesn't stop. He continues to run forward. He tries to run faster and faster and faster, literally telling himself, faster, faster, Edwin, faster, run, stop being lazy. And as he does so, he begins to feel his blood rush into his body as another point goes into dexterity. The snarling at this point in the back of his mind is so loud, so overwhelming that it's almost overtaking his rational mind. But he just can't stop. He needs blood, needs to stop this mugger, needs to stop this criminal, must feed. 1 dice self-control? Okay. Yeah, that's gonna suck. With between instinct and conscience, or conscience, fighting with each other, trying to do the right thing, and yet trying to feed that instinct, that need for blood. There's nothing much left of Edwin at the moment. He's running on a combination of those two factors alone, completely distracted from all other thoughts by the growling, snarling calls of blood, feed, and growling. Okay. Increased dice pool, but decreased chance of all else.
The man seems to be slowing down quite a bit. He trips up a bit. This crazed lunatic chasing him is starting to be a bit intimidating. He slows down just a bit, and when this crazed creature, whatever the hell this guy is, who the hell growls? Seriously, fucking hell. Fuck.
Strength plus intelligence?
Intimidate.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Okay. I don't think I have. Okay. So that's just a strength roll. Oh, wow.
And yeah, he's properly frightened by this thing. It is by this guy. He's the fuck, man. He kind of throws the purse in Edwin's direction. Like, take it. I don't even want it anyway. Good God. Little does he know that Edwin doesn't care about the purse.
Give me a quick dex and athletics to throw that.
Dex athletics.
Because he's throwing it towards him, so
it hits him, but it doesn't have any weight to actually do anything, so I'm not even rolling anything for damage.
3 versus 3 on defense. Even though he doesn't care about it, his hand swipes in the air, grabbing the purse by the handle, and he just continues to run even more purposefully towards this stumbling man as the purse goes flying forward. As Edwin gets closer and closer and closer to this, he starts to smell that sweet, sweet blood pumping, coursing within this man's veins preternaturally. Edwin's conscious mind doesn't know it, but his beast smells that VTMYTE in his veins. One more roll, or one more strength, or a dex athletics?
I'm gonna roll his stamina again real quick.
Okay.
He's barely holding on, so maybe one more.
Okay.
No. Go ahead and narrate the catch.
As the man in front of him tries to stumble back to his feet and continue his sprint, Edwin catches up to him, grabbing him quickly with both arms hugging around him and hurtling. Actually going to do a chance die for this. Okay. Arms grabbing around him, the purse still clutched in one arm, quickly pulls him, knocking him to the floor, Edwin landing on top of him into an alleyway. And as that happens, Edwin opens his mouth, fangs already bared from the chase.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
And just as the blood starts, as Edwin starts to drink the warm blood right down his veins, just gulp, 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 like chugging a beer. Even one that's been sitting a little bit in the heat, Edwin just continues to drink to sate that hunger. I'm gonna have to make a self-control roll.
Difficulty 8 with 1 dice.
Difficulty 8, okay.
And as Edwin feels the throes of the beast, it likes what it's tasting. It really does.
So he's actually in frenzy. Okay.
Hunger frenzy, essentially. He's
Hunger frenzy. Okay. As Edwin starts to taste the blood, as the sweet VTMYTE slides down his throat, warm, full of life, the thrill of the chase, the thrill of the hunt. The sating, the growling stops ever so slightly, out of desperation and now towards complete enjoyment. The man's body starts to go limp. Not all at once. The man underneath him tries to claw at Edwin's face, tries to push him away. Go ahead and give me a strength roll for the man, because it does take a few turns to drain someone.
He is affected by the kiss.
Oh!
So, in a dark,
Right.
twisted sense, this is the most pleasure he's ever felt as his life force drains away from him.
Away from him.
Heart
That's right.
beats slowly and slowly until there's nothing left to beat.
So it's one self-control roll during this fight. Okay. Drop by drop, bit by bit, pint by pint, Edwin takes every last bit into himself until he's sucking on nothing more than a dry, dead artery. The man stops whatever struggle, stops whatever movement he was making, and goes completely limp. As Edwin realizes there's nothing more, he's taken all. I believe human beings have 10 points.
Yes, now he's at 11.
That's the most full he's ever been since start of play. He gets up. Do I need to make another roll, or does Hunger Frenzy stop?
Not sure. But he's not hungry anymore.
Yeah, I'll be fair. That's probably barely a success at this point. As Edwin gets up and he looks down, sees a purse laying on the ground next to the body. He looks at the back of one of his hands. A smear of blood. He still feels a little bit of the warmth around his mouth. He looks back down at the body. Collapsing to his knees. He scrambles towards the ravaged corpse at this point. Completely shaken and uncertain as to what just transpired. Like a temporary amnesia washing over his mind. Difficulty for conscience? You said 8?
8.
He looks at the body, mind racked with uncertainty. And then his hand stows to the purse. He picks it up and begins to look through it until he finds a wallet. He looks for an identification. What have I done? He puts the wallet back in the purse and zips it. What have I done? How did I let it get this bad? How did I let myself get this way? As the memory of the chase, the memory of the hunt, the memory of the kill floods back into his mind, the temporary mist of amnesia lifts as full memory and recollection come back to him. And the only words that come to his mind are some of the last that he heard whenever, or the last he heard, or were words that he heard the last time he had a moral discussion. What if he deserved it? He looks at the man's body and his neck and sees the bite marks. He picks up the corpse, trying to be careful not to get too much blood on his hands, and he licks at the wounds, closing them, sealing them. He begins to look around, not seeing a dumpster down this alleyway. He looks towards the ground until he comes across a manhole. He scrambles frantically at the manhole, trying to pry it up, trying to gain access. This is going to be a very difficult extended strength roll. At first attempt, he begins to feel it, but it sticks a little bit. It only barely makes progress. He continues. He literally using his feet against the ground, bracing himself to pull it up, trying to keep his fingers from breaking their grasp. Until finally, after 25 minutes, he finally pulls the manhole cover off and just barely slides it over to the ground. He goes back, pulling the body from by the top of a jacket, shirt, anything along the ground as he starts to descend. Descend the ladder under the manhole cover. As the body begins, or as he pulls the body down, it slips. It almost causes him to lose his balance on the ladder. He manages to wrap his arm around one part of it and stop himself from falling. As the head of the corpse lands on his shoulder, like balancing a heavy box against his body. He continues down a little bit at a time, slow, until he gets all the way down to the bottom. It takes some time. When he does finally descend the ladder, he begins to look for something, anywhere that he can stash this body until he can figure out what to do with it. A pipe, a nook, a cranny, anything at all. But nothing can be found. Nothing. He pulls the body just around the corner. Doesn't leave it laying in the middle of the access walkway, but leaves it leaning up against the wall that kind of indents itself as the walkway goes from narrow to wide, and begins to ascend the ladder, having made his way back as quickly as possible. When he gets back up, he pulls the manhole cover back over the hole, picks up the purse, and begins to walk out of the alleyway, looking for a street sign to remember, or so that he knows where. And the only other thought going through his mind, I want to go home. Just want to go home. As Edwin begins to run at a fast pace through alleyways through alleyways off the streets, any way he can to avoid anyone else seeing him, in an effort to get back home as fast as possible. Meanwhile, back at the apartment that Edwin heads back to, a very tormented young woman wrestles with her inner demons.
A large woman. She sits in the tub, her face streaked with red blood. She doesn't even notice it's all through her hair, all over her clothes. The water's not even on. It's just running down the drain. As her voice, very audible, sobs between gulps of air, punctuating the sound. She sits. It's too much. It's too much. And the end of the scene may come as she looks up with a start. The sound of a door opening. She begins to shake again.
As Edwin walks back into the apartment 45 minutes later. The only thing past the door closing and locking that Sin hears from inside the bathroom is the sound of a person going to his knees on the floor, just repeating the words, "What if he deserved it? What if he deserved it?" As he begins, although justified, collapsing to the floor, sobbing.